Hey, this is Kevin again. Sorry it's been such a long time since I've made a movie, but it's been exceedingly busy. This is just something I do on the side. But let's talk about ancient Carthage, like one of the richest and greatest ancient empires. And I want to call it empire because it stretched quite a distance. Really incorporated what I would say of all of most of the Mediterranean on the western side. So Northwest Africa, Spain, Portugal, Gibraltar, it had Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, Malta, the Balearic Islands, and really dominated the Mediterranean, let's say from the tip of Greece over. And it was inevitable that it was going to come into conflict with Rome. And that caused, of course, one of the greatest conflicts in history, the Punic Wars. But I think you have to understand Carthage beforehand. It was colonized by the Phoenicians about the ninth century, something like that, and was destroyed by the Romans in 146. So it was around for about 700 years. But it was, I would say Carthage was probably one of the most lavish cities and one of the largest metropolitan centers actually in the world. It really was a major dominant power. And it was, a huge trading culture. So they had everything. This Carthage, they were, famous for, serial production of things, colored glass, uncolored glass, everything that you could possibly think of that could come out of the ancient world, they manufactured. And they were what I would call a monarchy. They had also what they call a Punic religion, so they were very religious people. And they had 5 or 6 different languages. I think they spoke, Punic, they spoke Phoenician, they spoke Berber from the Numidians, and ancient Greek. So it was very, very interesting culture. One of the kind of most interesting people that came out of it, of course, was Hannibal. Everybody knows about Hannibal. It's probably one of the most important people that came from it. But also, Hannibal's father was very, very significant. And Hannibal came from a great line of rulers and leaders. And they said that Hannibal was probably one of the greatest generals of all time. So I built this army to represent the Carthaginian armies of the Punic Wars. And I think it turned out okay, but mostly focused on the Second Punic War. I would have to make a few adjustments, and even for the Third Punic War, I'd have to make some adjustments to the army. But I think in all, you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like. So let's have at it. Well, here's the Carthaginian army, kind of laid out on the table. It's not a super huge army, but I think that it's put together pretty nicely. It's got a good representation of what a Carthaginian army might have looked like. I could add some more elephants, but then again, it's easy just to pull from one of the other Pyrrhic armies or Indian armies. But let's take a look at what this army looks like in detail. I'll take it from left to right, and we can talk about the figures and the painting and how I decided to build it. Well, the Carthaginian army starts with its commander. So here's Hannibal. It could be any of the other commanders, but I think it's a good representation. Put him on top of a rock, but actually it's not a rock at all. It's a piece of bark out of the forest, painted and then dry brushed. I think that works out pretty good. But anyway, we'll start with the back line. So here's various different Carthaginian commanders, and here's your line of Carthaginian spear, or African spear, or I've heard a lot of names for them, but in reality, I've got about, I think, because one unit is one stand of 16 figures, and in this particular case, I've got one unit there with kind of a shield pattern. I picked that one out. I like it. The center one is looking a little bit kind of Romanesque, which I guess they could have been. They just picked up the shields. And then this one over here, it's some more of the smaller round shields. And yes, you'll notice that on some of the shields, I glued them on upside down. But I thought that was so funny, and I just kind of kept it that way. I probably should turn them around, right? But nevertheless, hey, the figures are from Xyston. I think they made just a fantastic figure. I like them, and they painted up super well. And I put everything that I've got on a 40mm by 80mm base. That's kind of one unit. It gives me some room on the sides to do some diorama work and the rest. But that's your second line. Your first line are the Gauls. These are also Xyston figures, and these are my Gaelic war bands. I kind of doubled them up in a depth of fashion. You can see I really enjoy painting this kind of a shield, and every one is unique. But I think that the figures from Xyston look really well. Now I have another Celtic army, but I chose to just keep this one in the army as its own with the Carthaginians versus mixing and matching. So over here we have the Spanish contingency. It's in, I had so many of them, I didn't fit on the table. So they're 3 depth. And this is kind of a mixture. I've got some Old Glory in here mixed with Xyston. And, it fits well, but I kind of wanted a little bit more of a irregular look. And so you can see they're not quite as formed up as the Gaelic warbands. These are a little bit more open in nature, but I still think, it's good, solid, medium Celtiberian and infantry and Spanish. Some Roman shields are picked up, and they've got their own shield patterns and their own style, their own headdress, etc. But I think it really makes for a nice view, right? If you get the line, I could have maybe put them on the table a little bit more historical, but I think in general you get a good feel. So there's the elephants, also from Xyston. Their elephants are African, so they're a little bit smaller, but that's okay. That's the way they probably should be. I don't necessarily know if they had towers, if Hannibal had towers, but that's how they came, and yeah, I think it still looks pretty nice. So the skirmish front is a lot of slingers, javelin. I've got some Thracians in here. Really enjoy Thracian patterns and their capes. I've got a whole Thracian army that I'll put out and show everybody. That'll be one of the next ones. But, I've got some Numidian lights and some slingers of different nations, mercenaries. And then we come up to, on both wings, the Numidian cavalry. And, I didn't paint them like a lot of people do. I painted them more looking like North Africans and desert people. And yeah, that's just how I did it. Some little darker tones, lighter tones. The Spanish cavalry, in the rear, I've got several different units, very, very similar to your shield patterns for all the rest. So there's some Germans in here and some Celts and Spanish, but generally kind of representation of the mercenary cavalry arm that Carthage would have had. Moving across, just some light cavalry for skirmishing alongside of the Numidians. And then over to the side, there's your Carthaginian heavy cavalry. And I'll pull these up separate so that you can get a good look. And then more Spanish and German heavy cavalry. Each one is a little bit different in the way I painted it. Some look different Spanish tribes, different Gaelic tribes, a real mixture of different nations. And then, of course, on the flanks, more Numidian cavalry. Some of the commanders that they have really look nice when they are painted up, and I did. I've got some on round bases and some on square. The newer ones are rounded. The older ones are square, but I just didn't have the energy to just pop them off. But I think everybody will forgive me. Then there's a lot of just various different African skirmishers. But I think in general, if you look at the army as a whole, it's pretty nice. We'll give the Romans a real run for their money, that's for sure. Very, very good cavalry. A good solid medium infantry line, elephants, great skirmishers, awesome light cavalry, and just about everything for a combined arms army. Well, I hope you enjoyed looking at my Carthaginian army. If you have any comments, tell me how I can do things better, or if my painting is off, or the movie's off, or if you'd like something different. I'm pretty flexible and pretty open and take criticism very well. I also take praise even better. So if you've got any of that, I'll take that in spades. But anyway, hope you enjoyed my backward shield Carthaginian veteran spearman as well. Take care. Bye.